that's number one, knowing how they learn best and treating it like a class. Okay, how do I reach them? But then also, do you know what you're talking about? Are you intentional about learning your craft and leaning into your craft to be able to answer their tough questions so you can help them on this journey to be the best versions of themselves? So I think it's this whole big thing that I just equate coaching to teaching. And I think, it was just the way I was brought up in the home. I saw it modeled by a high school keyboarding teacher and a high school basketball coach. That's how he lived his life.
Welcome to the JAMODI Podcast. Today we're joined by the Associate Head Men's Basketball Coach at Rice University, Chris Kreider. Coach Kreider's playing career spanned 3 colleges, beginning at Mansfield University, then Grove City College in Pennsylvania, and finishing at Lebanon Valley College. At Grove City, he led the team in scoring and steals. Coach Kreider's coaching journey began in 2002 at the University of Great Falls and has included roles at USC Aiken, Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern, George Mason, VMI, Rice, Georgia State, and SMU. Coach Kreider is in his second stint at Rice and his third stop working alongside head coach Bob Lanier, having also been on staff with him at Georgia State and SMU. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast.
Coaches, the JAMODI Podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
How are you?
Man, how are you doing?
Doing great.
This is so much fun that we get to do this because I feel like over the years we've texted or connected on social media in some way, when you were at SMU and now also doing it right, how you're doing at Rice, which is great. And this is awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. What's new with you?
Oh, not too much. We've got 2 days until school. I'm down here at Waco Midway now. So it's kind of weird after 12 years starting out at a new place. But I think you understand a little bit about that.
Just a little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Fresh starts are good.
Yeah. How was your summer?
It was good. We have maybe a week and a half until guys get back. We just got back from Europe, went as a team, which was fun. Spent 10 days over there, Belgium, France, played 3 games. Guys had a blast.
What do you feel like happens to the team, on a trip like that?
I really think, you're forced to spend so much time together, from breakfast to dinner, and then they're going out and doing stuff at night, hanging out. So just from hearing from them, it was like, yeah, we had a chance to really bond. The feedback was good, like no clicks. You just hear stuff like that where you probably wouldn't never know that until maybe your first scrimmage on the road or game on the road or something like that. So even though you're with them all summer, it's like you don't spend that much time that we just did. You feel like you really get to know them.
Yeah, especially that downtime. It's like you get to see them at practice and workouts, but then you go your separate ways. So after a game or a practice you have overseas, then you have to go eat together, like you said, and kind of do life together almost full time.
Yeah, there's no hiding.
There's no hiding. But then you come home and you have those 10 days or so away. Do you think that that's a good thing, kind of the space and the time away? Because high school coaches, we go June and July having open gyms. And then for me, those 3 weeks, kind of the end of July into August, I kind of shut things down, let them get away a little bit. What do you think that creates?
I think it, you want to always stay in like, I think I fight, like, how much room do you give them over those 2 weeks? Like you want to check in, you want to, be around even, if it's over the phone or text. But I do think that it's year round at this level. Legit year round. And so if they're never taking a little bit of a break, I just feel like it's a little overkill for them. Like just to give them some time away, I think is a good thing. So I think it's a benefit to be at that.
I can't remember who said it, but one coach said that we have to give them time to miss us a little bit. I think if you don't do that, then you're using your voice. They're hearing your voice in July. Man, by the time it gets to December and January, when we really want them to be locked in, that's a lot.
Yeah, you have to be intentional about stepping away, I think, for sure.
Well, Coach, again, thank you so much for giving up your time coming on. Just had it's been fun when our paths have crossed over the years, and just really appreciate you giving up your time.
No, for sure. I appreciate the invite.
20 plus years in college coaching now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, sounds old when you say it like that, but that's all I heard when you said that.
I didn't mean it that way. You've been doing this forever. No,
Right.
but 20 plus years and in such a competitive space like college coaching, I would imagine you have some daily habits that set you up for success, kind of keep you motivated, keep you sane. What does that day or morning look like?
Yeah, I think I've always been that way. Even as a player, you have your set routine that you like doing. I think it's just kind of flowed into coaching. But I do think there was a time, I think it was around the pandemic, where you had more time to really settle into a routine. So I think my morning routine, my faith is very important to me. So that quiet time early on in the morning is a start to the day. I need it. But what I started doing during the pandemic was this, I guess, the idea of habit stacking. So you know, I kind of fell in love with the Peloton. And so I'll get on there and I'll, have my quiet time, read a little something, pray, get my mind right. And then that'll bleed into some other things too, whether it's, what's coming up that day, a little to-do list on my phone. I find myself, once I've checked a couple of those things, it's a routine that I do early in the morning before the day gets started. And I've found that I really need it. So that's kind of a preference, but the idea of stacking things. So that what also happened during the pandemic, Coach Lanier is a big walker too. So it kind of was contagious on our staff at Georgia State at the time, but we would walk a lot. And so the walking to me, the idea of stacking things. So, whether it's getting ready for that day's practice, thinking about what I needed to hit, so-and-so with on our team, recruiting what I had to do that day, scheduling. So I tried to just from the morning routine to maybe like a walk in the afternoon or the evening to kind of recalibrate. But just those things that I've just found I've fell in love with and I need every day. And if I don't get them, I'm kind of off. And then the other thing is just, I want to say Shaka Smart was the one that I heard do this, but a long time ago, I was at George Mason at the time. He just talked about having a notebook. And that's a habit that, I go in and out of it, but it's not a journal per se, but it's just anything. So every year I have a notebook. And so it's just, you write it, whether it's a quote, a play, a thought, I like this, I don't like that, write it down. And then, I think that's helped me go back every year and kind of review the year, but it helps me just kind of stay grounded throughout the day to day.
I love the idea of habit stacking and great. I try to walk, do a little bit of an incline treadmill, but I don't necessarily get other things done during that time. And so there's an idea that I could probably batch some things, put it together. That's really good. With the notebook, like you, I've kind of gone in and out of journaling. There's a couple on my desk right now. Man, I was watching one show on Netflix about I think a bunch of quarterbacks and Kirk Cousins had this type of graph notebook that he was just going through and pouring through. And I thought about, like, I'm not a good drawer of plays or courts. It always is crooked or distorted. It's awful. But with the graphing, notebook, I can draw straight lines. And so, but if you look behind me, there's just all these different notebooks over the years. I have no organization to it. Do you have any tips or anything with staying organized? How do you maybe go through and get thoughts down so that when you look back over it, you can actually tell what this is you're looking at?
No, that's great question. So I mentioned Shaka, and I happened to be sitting by him this summer, and it was either that or text or somewhere I heard he had mentioned he does the same thing, obviously. And I told him thanks, and I'd heard someone else talking on a podcast. I think it was maybe Mike Morrell. It triggered a thought at some point. So when I told him that, he said he's actually asking his wife, or his wife is helping him transcribe all of his notebooks digitally. So I think that was interesting. And then another friend of mine, Kevin Carroll, the head coach at Lipscomb now, I know uses Evernote. At one point he did, because him and I we're similar in those ways with the notebooks. And I remember him saying the same thing your question was. So I guess to sum it all up, I'm trying to get better like you in organizing it. But what I have found is the note app on my phone. The last couple years, I've really gotten addicted to that. So like I'll go back and forth with the notebook, but like in real time, I'm on my phone on the note section, and then I'm finding a way to get it to the notebook. And I find that, if you look at this whole, we're basketball junkies. So it's like, if you treat it like a class. And so for me, when I was in school, if I wasn't writing something, rewriting it, I wasn't really learning it either. And so I'm a color coordinated. I need a marker with a different color sometimes. Like that's just how my brain works. So I've found that the notebook combined with my own little quirky way of trying to stay organized, but I'm still working on the master organization, like you're saying, over the years. I'm trying to work on that.
Yeah, Kevin Eastman was talking about his note-taking system and how he pulls from, like, he'll have a book, and the colors made me think of that. He'll have a book, and it'll have all of these tabs with different colors, and then also things highlighted with different colors, and the different colors mean different things. Like, let's just say orange is something he wants to incorporate into one of his presentations. And so then when he's going back through, he has notebooks or sections or note cards from those different things. It's just I'm always fascinated by those guys that are like Buzz Williams. They're writing a ton of things down, but and then it kind of goes back to the beginning of, like you said, habit stacking and being organized. Because if you're not organized throughout your day, man, all of a sudden it gets to be 9 o'clock at night. You haven't gotten in the word, you haven't walked, you haven't written anything down, and that day is lost and gone. And so I think you convicted me a little bit to get more organized with it.
No, I think the biggest thing is we all have to find something that works for us. I think that's the key.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned how you and Coach had been at a few different schools together. And I think this is unique, having this talk with you where I'm at right now of starting over again. You've done that with the same coach a few times. What are some of those maybe action steps or pieces of advice you would give somebody coming into a new situation, new school year, with the experience that you've had doing that?
Yeah, I've been through it. I guess this is my third time with Coach Lanier, and I want to say like sixth or seventh overall under some
Yeah.
other coaches. So I think when I combine all of that, I would say every job is different. So like my first year at VMI, that's a military school. My first year at George Mason is different than SMU, Georgia State, now Rice. So I guess depending on the school you're at, what situation you're inheriting and you're walking into, the staff you have around you. I think for Coach Lanier, he brought a lot of us with him from Georgia State to SMU to now Rice. So I think when you have that level of continuity on your staff, I do think that it's easy just to kind of say, hey, go run with this, whatever this is. And I think, if you're a head coach, you have a staff that you can trust with things like that. I think it makes it easier. But I do think there's a level of, from day one, just establishing what are you about? What's the program going to stand for? What are the expectations? And I think the stuff I know you're doing, I do think that there's no secret sauce. It's, are you authentic? Do you have a plan? Is it well thought out? And once you hit the ground running with implementing it, I think the same thing's going to happen. It'll duplicate, the past success you've had with that plan.
The fact that you said every job is different, and it's one of those things that, Coach, I knew that, right? I knew that Midway was going to be different than Grapevine Faith. I knew not only different cities, different sizes, one's private, one's public, but man, I fell into that trap of comparing. And I told Jana just a few days after being down here that, man, I'm comparing hardcore right now to the systems that were already in place after years at Faith, and even different kids, and where these guys are compared to them. And it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to my players at Midway. It was going to drive me nuts. And so PGC has a great presentation about dropping your comparisons. And I feel like that's been a huge thing for me. And I bet other coaches that have walked in or walking into new situations, and like you have, man, maybe what worked there doesn't work here. And then you nailed it too. tapping into the assistant coaches that are possibly there from before you and using them as a resource. I don't know if I've done that necessarily the best, but that's a good reminder for me.
Yeah, I think, you always have to find that sweet spot of marrying the past to the present and being authentic to you. I just think, your program is always going to be different than the last guys, but as long as you have that level of respect and how you're talking about the previous coach and the previous staff. And I mean, there's an art to that too, to make sure that everyone understands what you're really saying.
No doubt. And it's like coach speak or passive aggressive talk. It's so easy to say things like, well, this is how we're going to do it now. I know you've done it that way before, or I know this. And I think all of that stuff, it just puts players a little bit of an awkward place. And that's not something we want to do. I was watching on YouTube last night. The Warriors have a series that's going out right now, and only episode 1 is out. And I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's going back to the Mark Jackson days and how they built that. And then Steve Kerr, I mean, they were a playoff team, coach, and they had won 51 games. And they let Mark Jackson go to bring in Steve Kerr, who hadn't coached either. And one of the things that Steve Kerr did was he said, I'm not here to just completely reinvent everything and break what you guys have been doing before. And he had that kind of same approach that you're talking about, always spoke very well about Mark Jackson. And I just think that's a great reminder for us.
Yeah, for sure. I think the longer you coach, the more years like that you're going to go through.
Kind of going from your daily habits, and you mentioned being a basketball junkie, which I love that. It's always fun getting to talk to those guys. What's one of the best things that you feel like you borrowed lately?
Yeah, I try to borrow a lot. I think when I first got into, was first coming up, social media wasn't really around. The internet was obviously, but like, I
Yeah.
just think between social media now and YouTube, especially like you just mentioned, like, there's no excuse for us coaches not to learn and grow. And I think it's an awesome time to be a coach, to be honest. Like, I think the sharing that goes on, I mean, this wasn't going on. It was impossible. So I do think what I've tried to steal lately, what I've ended up stealing is just systems, the idea of having systems for things. Just as an assistant coach, been doing it now for, like you said, a decent amount of time. And so whether it's scheduling, in my role here, doing the schedule, or recruiting or academic monitoring, whatever it is, if you have a system in place. So, on my laptop, it's a non-conference scheduling Excel document that I just refer to every day, recruiting document. And so moving forward, if I'm ever fortunate to be a head coach, I feel like, okay, here's how we're doing academics. Here's how we're doing scheduling. The system is already in place. And now what league you're in or what situation you're in, you're going to have to change how many bye games you're playing in regards to scheduling, the MTE, boom, drop down, and just a way to kind of build things. And so you think about all the stuff that's involved in coaching at any level. I was a high school coach for 3 years, and I know the stuff, whether it's parents, whether it's the on the court stuff, whether it's the travel, whatever. It's just, do you have a system for every single thing that we do? I've really tried to lean into that from an organizational standpoint.
When you have systems like you're talking about, how do you keep organized throughout the day to where you have the time to check those? Because I would think a lot of coaches, especially starting the school year, are thinking about how their days are going to go. And then sure enough, it never goes the way that you planned it. Teachers, parents, kids, you're being pulled different places. You can have all those systems. That's awesome. But how do you actually stay organized through your day? How are you keeping time set aside for those things you need to get done?
Yeah, I think time management is key. It all stems from, the head coach, in my case, at this level, like, who you work for, or do you have a meeting, a standing meeting at 9 a.m.? If so, you're working around the meeting. But whatever the things are on the calendar, you're planning around, but you're finding a way, back to kind of what we were talking about earlier about habits. You're finding a way with a to-do list, and you're moving around, like what's urgent, what's not. But you're always trying to, as an assistant coach, I think the biggest thing that we can be is just try to stay ahead of things. And so you're just constantly looking at the day and saying, okay, well, I'm most likely going to get a call from a parent today or tomorrow. So I need to make sure I'm doing whatever that is to get ready for that. But I'll tell you this, in college, if you're not recruiting every day, there's a problem. So like recruiting, you're opening that every day. And then
Yeah.
scheduling is just like recruiting. I mean, they always say that recruiting's number one, scheduling might be number two at this level. So I'm opening that every day. And then academics, you're finding a way to just find a system that if you get to the end of the day, there's a mental checklist. But this is where for me, it's the walking. Like I'm walking, I'm just scrolling through real quick. Yep, did that. All right, good. And now I can, focus on what Heather needs me to do that night. But
That's right.
that's how I
Focus on getting the dishes done then at
Right.
that point. Yeah. I hate the dishes. Um, use assistance with the mindset of trying to stay ahead. And I think that's a really useful nugget that I needed to hear because at Midway, I've got two fantastic assistant coaches that when I got there was able to bump them up into higher roles. And they're awesome. They're younger guys. They're going to be great head coaches one day. I already know that. But one of them, Coach Bloomstrom, kind of surprised me a little bit in the summer. We were just sitting around the office, said, "Hey, coach, what are the expectations? What can I do for you this year?" And I wasn't ready for it. Like it caught me off guard. And part of it is a little bit of what I've been doing the last few years at Faith with part-time assistant coaches. I've just tried to do a lot of things on my own because they were coming from real jobs. Well, these guys are here and they're eager and they want to work. And so that's something like when I meet with them tomorrow, and it kind of ties back to what you said about how awesome it is to be a coach right now and how many different voices you can hear and think you and I are having this talk. Maybe that was the thing that I needed to hear. So tomorrow I can go in and go, hey guys, here's a great goal for you. And something I wish I would have done better for Wes Watson at McKinney High School is stay ahead. Let me know what things, you know this place better than I do. Let me know what things are about to come that I don't even realize. And let's just, be able to sidestep some of those things. Coach, that's great.
No, I think that's one way as assistant. You only learn through experience. I think I learned, I've worked with some assistant coaches that taught me that very thing. So what you're saying, you're about to tell your staff, that's been modeled to me by veteran assistants for sure.
Jeff Clarkson at Prestonwood talked about how there's so many great coaches out there, people that share the game like Mark Cassio, Tyler Costin that are just doing amazing things with Savvy, all the PGC guys on Hardwood Hustle. I mean, slapping glass like golly. And then you get to guys that are like you that are coaching every day, but also share amazing stuff. But Jeff made a comment. He's like, man, you can't do everything. So you can hear a bunch of stuff. You can fill up a notebook. Coach, how do you figure out what to actually use, what'll work for you, and then what's just a great idea, but man, not for me in this situation?
Man, I think it's like back in the day, the only time you dealt with this question was when you went to a clinic, so you would go to a clinic,
Yeah.
those clinics and Ed Janko would be putting it on and you'd have, all right, this coach is up first, this coach is up next, take a break, come back, and you got your whole legal pad. Well, now I think you're challenged with this every day, because you can't get on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You cannot go a day without, I like that. I like that. And before you know it, you're all over the place. So to answer your question, I think that what I've tried to play out or get better at is, okay, I like this. If you do this, what does this turn into? You go down this road. Can you, let's just talk about a simple thing, switching solutions. All right. So like everybody's worried about switching defense. Okay. What are we going to do against switching? Okay. Once you do this, once you say this is a solution against switching, well, the defense is going to react to that. And then, so are you ready to take the next step and then the next step? And then you turn around and you're down a road where, you know what, I didn't think that out. Or, scouting, for instance. Yeah, we're going to do this. Well, then what are they going to do when you do this? And so if you can keep it all into perspective without getting emotional either way and jumping here and jumping there, I do think there's an art to collecting new things and saying, okay, this is back to the switching solutions. This is what we've done, these three things. Okay, I like this other thing. Let's take out one of the three, insert this, and I understand it. I can teach it. We can implement it. It's not just going to be another thing on the wall that doesn't stick.
I also think it goes back to something you said earlier, and it was a little bit about when we were talking of taking over a new place and what are some strategies, and you basically brought up identity. about letting those players and your program know what you're about, what you're going to hang your hat on. I do think identity helps maybe give you a lens or a filter for what actually you're looking for. Because you said switching, just by knowing that that's maybe something that defensively we want to do. Well, then there's some defenses and some people and some packets that you're just not going to read. You're not going to go down that hole. But if you don't know, it's kind of like Kelvin Sampson said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, right? If you don't have an identity as a coach or with your players, and it can shift and change from year to year depending on your personnel. Golly, I think college coaches like you know that better than ever before with how teams mold and shift even more from year to year. But I think having an identity helps.
No, for sure. I think that's the number one way. I mean, for sure. Just weeding things out and not wasting time chasing different things that in the end aren't going to help you.
Yeah. You talked about in person going to clinics, and there's still a part of me, man, that loves doing that more than what you and I are doing right here. But the technology piece to this, and COVID did teach us that. I made the mistake of saying, man, one thing that was great about COVID, it's kind of like, okay, let me go back. But one thing that I think we learned was that we can do team in a lot of different ways. But also we can learn and do this. What do you think though is lost by, us just watching or listening to podcasts or watching things online and not having that time at clinics around other coaches?
I do think, at the clinics personally, I do think one of my favorite parts was not only listening and learning was after the fact, walking up and maybe asking a follow-up question in person that you can't. I mean, it's hard to kind of break off into a side room on a Zoom with a group of people. So I do think there's a level of that, but I also think that there's a level of nuance, things that when you're in person, you're hearing maybe somebody else ask a question and you hear their response and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. And, so I look back on things that I thought I knew, 15 years ago that now if I could go back, probably wouldn't do, or I was wrong or whatever. And then it's kind of the same thing what you're talking about, but I do think that, for us as assistant coaches, aspiring head coaches anyway, it's like you're trying to learn this stuff in a way in person. There's something about being in person because as a head coach, you're going to have to deliver a message to a group of people and they're going to in turn either take what you're, understand what you're saying and how you're saying it and how you're teaching it and installing it and reviewing it and implementing and then assessing it and evaluating it and all. And so I think all that stuff sometimes is hard over a screen. And so for me, I always tried to, I was a head high school coach a long time ago at a private school in Atlanta. And so I'm an aspiring now college head coach, but I'm trying to take my years of experience and now always put myself in when I hear Coach Lanier talking or see him in front of our team. And I'm trying to say, okay, if that were me, what would I say? How would I do it? And I try to be really critical of myself because those are the reps that I can get right now of when am I going to be ready to do that message in person? So I know it's a little different than the question that you asked, but I do think that learning, you go and spend a weekend at another program's practice or meetings and you come away with a different level of confidence to be able to do something in front of a team.
And I think you nailed it right there with the level of confidence. And part of that comes from being challenged by others. If I'm not careful, I mean, even on here, because I'm the one that kind of is asking the questions most of the time, I've never had another coach that's on the other side of this, like fire back a challenge at me that is completely opposite or almost calling me out on being, I don't know if that's right. Like I disagree with you.
Right.
That just hasn't happened. And it's okay if it does, but I think if we're not careful, we can put ourselves in a bubble to where we're not challenged by anybody. Our thoughts are never evaluated. And like
That's
when
a
you
great
said, when
point.
you get there and you're sitting around at a clinic or you present or you get to do something, and then you're able to get that feedback from people. I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of how we get better, and by failing a little bit too.
I agree.
You've been at 3 different stops with Coach Lanier, and that's incredible. I can't imagine how valuable or how much he values you. And just you mentioned before, like continuity, the stability to change and go to a new program, but to have you. And so it's like you guys together and maybe others on your staff too. But what is it about him that has made you want to continue to work for him as jobs change?
Yeah, first and foremost, it is our whole staff, Justin Crow, Andre Owens, Jordan Glover, our whole staff, Jeff Martin, Jack Schumann, top to bottom. And we have two incredible GAs that are well on their way to doing awesome things. But I think first and foremost, as an assistant coach, it's about who you work for. And to me, when I say that, it's not just the basketball coach, it's the person. My family, my faith and my family are the two most important things to me. So when I wake up every day working for Coach Lanier, I know that he knows that those things are important to me, and that means a lot to me. And I'm able to be the father, the husband that I know I need to be. At the same time, he knows I'm going to get the work done. He knows our staff is going to work together in a he empowers each one of us to be the best that we can be. He wants us all to be head coaches one day. He wants us all to accomplish our goals. So when you work for someone like that, I mean, how don't you sell out and give your very best? And
Yeah.
I think the same way that we want our players to feel is how our staff right now feels about working for him.
I tried to jot down a few of those things because I want to be a coach that others working with me feel like, and this is kind of the list I got. So if I miss something, kind of help me out here. But he knows who you are as a person and values that, right? Like you're a person of faith and your family's important. Well, then him valuing that, not putting more stress on your life or maybe leading in a way that is contrary to what you believe. Like I got to imagine that's huge. And then, like you said, empowering you to feel like it's your program. What are some of those things that he does, like with you and other assistant coaches, that makes you feel empowered?
Yeah, we've kind of leaned the last couple of years into the coordinator thing, so, whether it's offense, defense,
Which side are you?
and so he has me focused on the offensive side.
Nice.
And so, right next door, Justin Crow, for the last couple of years, he's been on the defensive side, and Andre Owens now with us offensively, and Jordan Glover now defensively. So he's reassigning this year's staff in those ways and kind of putting us in buckets. But the beautiful thing about our staff is that once you move the pieces around and we say, okay, here's how we're organized, it's seamless because there's no egos in our office and guys are all in on the same page. We all want what's best for Coach Lanier's program here at Rice. And so I think offensively, let's just say for me, I'll do whatever he asks me to do that day, and I'm ready to adjust and pivot. Hey, pre-practice, do this, this, and this. He'll walk in the office and say, 1, 2, 3, write it down, got it, let's go. I think you just have to be ready to carry out whatever the order is that day, and you have to be ready to give your opinion when it's asked for and needed. And he really pushed us, you said the word empower, but he pushes us to treat it like it's our own. And that's kind of allowed us, I'll just speak for our whole staff, to really grow as coaches and develop our own coaching voice on the floor.
You've been around so many great coaches and leaders. You talked a little bit about Coach Lanier. If you had to choose 3 characteristics, and maybe some of those kind of blend from what we just talked about, what would those be from great leaders and coaches?
Yeah, I've worked for some really good ones. Like, I don't even know, I'd have to go through each one, but Paul Hewitt, Dan Earl, Vince Alexander, Charlton Young, now Rob Lanier, Scott Para, first time at Rice here, I work with him. So all of them characterized by, I would say, like 3 things stick out to me when I think of really, you use the word great head coaches. I'd say you have to be an inspiring teacher. So not just a teacher, but an inspiring teacher. I think, I used to teach Spanish actually in high school, and I don't know how good of a Spanish teacher I was, but I was passionate about Spanish because I grew up in Colombia, South America. And so I tried to find a way to relate Spanish to a group of middle schoolers sometimes or high schoolers that I know weren't interested. And so I had to find a way to be inspiring and teach Spanish, but in our case, teach basketball, which made me be a learner of Spanish and now basketball. So lifelong learner, inspiring teacher, I would say. Number 2, servant leader. I think if you're not serving your players, your staff, like we were talking about, Coach Lanier serves us. He really does. So he's a servant leader. But then I would say authentic. So I rattled off a list of the guys that I've worked for. They're all different. They're all great head coaches, but they're all different, and they all are a unique, authentic version of themselves that I, as an assistant coach, have to lean into, find my lane in being authentic. And if I'm ever fortunate to be a head coach, same thing, you got to be yourself.
Hannah Baker said, you can't coach what you don't possess. And it's an interesting thing to think about, because if that's true, or if we're kind of look at that black and white, well, if I'm not inspiring, if that's just not something that I bring, or if I don't have energy and enthusiasm, I'm just not wired that way. Well, can I ever become that? Right? If I don't possess it already. So I think that I get what he's saying, but I also think we can, with reps and it being intentional, grow. How do you become that inspiring teacher and inspiring coach like you're talking about?
So I grew up with, long story, I won't get into it, but I lived with my best friend growing up in high school. His dad was our high school coach. His name's Scott Barton, and my best friend, my brother, Nate Barton. And so I lived in the home of a high school coach. And so I kind of saw, to me, coaching is teaching at its core. And so to be an inspirational teacher, I feel like you have to sit in and I'll just use the classroom, Johnny, Jimmy, Sarah, and all these girls, young men, boys, girls that I had in middle school and high school Spanish. Well, now they're college age basketball players, but they all learn differently. They all come from different backgrounds. They all have different personalities. They care about different things. Yeah, they love basketball and they're trying to chase their professional dreams at this level. And they're trying to get a really good education here at Rice. So, but if you don't know and have a relationship with each one individually and know what makes them tick, it's really hard to be an inspiring teacher. And so I think that's number one, knowing how they learn best and treating it like a class. Okay, how do I reach them? But then also, do you know what you're talking about? Are you intentional about learning your craft and leaning into your craft to be able to answer their tough questions so you can help them on this journey to be the best versions of themselves? So I think it's this whole big thing that I just equate coaching to teaching. And I think, it was just the way I was brought up in the home. I saw it modeled by a high school keyboarding teacher and a high school basketball coach. That's how he lived his life.
And I love that you said relationship, because I think it's hard to be truly inspiring, and not just like, we had a convocation. We had a great speaker come, and he did an awesome job. He was inspiring, but it was to a point, because I don't know him. I don't know him personally. He doesn't know my story. We didn't connect at all like that one-on-one. So I think that relationship is key. I don't know how we can be truly inspiring as a coach or a teacher without that. But then you nailed something too. You got to be competent. We need to continue to have, you mentioned growth mindset earlier, lifelong learners. If we look back at our practice plans from 5 years ago, or the shooting games or the drills that we're doing, and not that those things are bad, you got to throw everything out, but what are we adding? I think a great question that you probably ask your players before the summer is, what do you want to add to your game this summer? How do you want to come back different? I think that question needs to be asked to us quite a bit. But man, without if I'm not careful, coach, I'm going to recycle those Google Drives and just change the date and throw that thing back out there again.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there's a level of, after every season, I know I try to do it, you take advantage of while it's fresh to evaluate last year. But then this time in August, 2 weeks out from the start of school, you always try to just regroup and say, okay, what did I learn? How can I get better?
I think we have danced around that buzzword culture a little bit. Culture that your head coach has created and the culture that you create with your programs. I like to think of it a little bit more like standards. It was Stan Leach that talked about he just can't stand the word culture. And he says if he's ever interviewing a football coach or anybody and he walks in and says, we're going to change the culture, he just leans back and rolls his eyes. But he also talked about how important it is of the systems, like you talked about, how we're going to put in place. How does culture drive the performance of your program?
I think it's a cliche word, like you said, but I think it's so true. It's so real. Culture is how you live is kind of the way I think about it as a coach, for sure. How do you want your program to operate on a daily basis? When someone comes to your practice and just sits up top and you don't know that they're there and they're observing how how you coach, how you interact with your players, how your players play the game, managers, support staff, like just what's the vibe? I think, we are always being evaluated, especially in this industry, but no matter what you do, you're always being evaluated. So for us, I think the culture it's a feeling you get when you hang out with our team and our coaches and our program. We want you to walk away thinking, man, these guys love each other. I mean, it's obvious, like they care about each other. They're not just out here playing basketball. Like they really genuinely have deep relationships. They tell each other they love them. They mean it. And you can tell by the way that they live and act.
You and I played around the same time. When did you play in college?
So I finished up 2003 at Lebanon
Yeah.
Valley.
Yeah, we're the same age. So, I asked that question because I don't feel like it was always that way. Like with my Baylor team, especially the first 3 years with Dave Bliss, I can't remember a time where we talked about caring about each other, where he addressed anything in that way. And then Coach Drew was different. He did talk about that. And I think he had to with us. We only had 6 scholarship players. We weren't going to be very good because after the whole tragedy scandal thing.
Right.
But he's continued that on. At what point did that become more of normal? And maybe you had a coach like that in college that did talk about building that type of team and culture without using the word culture. When did that shift happen?
Yeah, I would love to know the answer. I don't have an answer, but I do agree with you on the shift. I do think that it's something where, it might be, I can't think of an analogy, but like there's things that are just talked about enough. And then all of a sudden, enough people are saying things, oh, this must be the better way to do it. I know that Pete Carroll clip is going around about different types of leadership. I think that's a great analogy you're talking about, but it's like there's different ways to do it. And even now, there still is. You can win different ways. But what I always personally come back to is this is just me. And, you have your own, but like, why do we coach? And
Yeah.
what we really like, coaching doesn't define me really. My faith, like I told you, my faith, my family. I mean, that's really what I value the most. I love this game. So I think if that's how you go about this whole journey as a coach, I think that's where, you lean into the things we were just talking about. That's what you want people to think about you. They want you to see a light, feel like something's different. Like, what is it about these guys?
I love that. Joe Ehrman, in his book Inside Out Coaching, really goes into the idea that we have to define our why. We need to know why we're coaching. And it kind of made me think and write down a few things. Like I'm coaching to make a positive impact in the lives of my players. And the way that I do that is I try to instill in them and demonstrate to myself humility. I'm so proud of how humble I am. Humility, but then also I want them to learn how to pursue excellence and how to value hard work. None of that had anything to do with winning or state championships. But I think that exercise of sitting down with a sheet of paper and just writing, why am I doing this? I got to imagine that's something that we have to do probably at least once, but often.
A lot. And I think as the landscape keeps changing and maybe potentially you're spending less time, like you used to be with somebody for 4 years. So now if it's only a year, you have to kind of expedite the process and take advantage of every single minute.
I was hoping that your answer would really trigger something in me as far as when it started, the culture thing, because I'm not sure either. But I did think about social media, the rise of social media, giving everybody a platform more to express their feelings, to see what others are doing, and for curtains to be lifted from what programs are doing. Like I can go to your social media and I can see the amazing things you're doing with your team, and I don't know, coach. I think that is a huge part to do with what Dave Bliss said to us in private would not be private anymore.
Yeah,
And I think that's so many people talk about the negative side of social media, and there are some. One thing I'm really excited about, coach, is in Texas high schools this year, there's a no cell phone policy, and then when they have to put it up when they go into school, it has to be powered off, and they can't turn it on again until they leave. I think coach, I really am excited. I think we're going to go back in time. And we're gonna go back to you and me being in the 90s and walking around and people talking to each other.
Yeah. Right.
People, like, getting to know each other and actual relationships. Man, I got kinda chills right there thinking about it because
Can't
a
wait to
lot of
hear.
people are "It's gonna be so much work on this or not in that." For teachers, we're gonna have to police someone. It'll be tough at the beginning, but I think it's gonna be one of the best things that's ever happened. Long ramble there to say that I think social media has a good thing that it's done is made us all have to be transparent with
Right.
how we talk and the culture we're creating.
I agree with you.
Thanks. Thanks, coach. I needed that. You said something too that I wanted to circle back about building a culture, building a team. And the Oakland coach, Greg Campy, had a great point about we were talking about culture. And I said, man, what's it like to build a program over 42 years? And he says, Matt, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm building teams every year. So I don't know how many players that you've added or lost or how different this team is. The Baylor team has no one returning from last year's team. So when you've got that summer with the guys together and you're trying to build culture, is it more difficult now than before? Or what's that like?
I think it's definitely different. Some would probably say it's more difficult, but it's different, and I think we just have to adjust. And it's something that professional basketball goes through. Overseas or G League. I mean, rosters are changing, so those
Yeah.
they hear us talk and they're like, "This is normal for us." Junior
The
colleges,
junior college coaches are like, we've been doing this forever. What are we
right?
talking about?
But I do think for us, that have maybe been in this other world a different way, it's a new skill set that we have to, we talk about getting better. I think I personally have tried to challenge my own, maybe things I say or things I think about. Hey, it's just you're gonna have to learn a new way to do it, and you're gonna have to be more intentional for sure, because you just have less time with them. But I still think authenticity is if you try to like come up with some magic, experience or quick conversation that you're not, it doesn't fit you or it's not your identity. I mean, you're really spinning your wheels with that too. So I think it's still more of the same. What do you want? What are you trying to do? And then find the best way to do it as quickly as possible.
Got to imagine with just a shortened timeline to do all the things that you have to do now. I think I could see the temptation in trying to have some grand exercise that gets us there. And then all of a sudden, boom, culture is done. But no matter what, one, I appreciate your mindset about it. Like, this is what it is. We're not going to complain about it. We're just going to adapt, like the cell phone thing. Like, this is
Right.
what it is, guys. We're going to make this work. But I still like the idea of sprinkling in culture over time. And I got to imagine that even with the shortened timeline, you can still do that.
Yeah, and I think, I know we talked about, we just got back from this foreign trip. So what crystallized for me off the trip a little bit too was some of our seniors will be trying to play professional basketball less than one calendar year from now. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, the skills that are going to be demanded of them pretty soon to make it in an overseas market on a team that they might not know the language with some, a set of teammates this year or this set of games and a different set. I mean, if you can't adjust, so really we have to help teach them these skills for their own future anyway. So why are we sitting here complaining about it as coaches? Like, we need to find a way to help our guys navigate this for their future as well.
I love that. And I think the idea of the shared experiences, that's probably a really good way. Like, you guys, we can't at Midway or at any of these other schools. For the most part, we're not going overseas during the summer. We're not doing that. But we can go bowling. We can
Right.
do things together that's outside the gym that is a shared experience. I got to imagine that that is a way to create some of these relationships that we've been talking about.
Yeah, creating meaningful, intentional conversations, I think, too. Like doing things together, going to a
Yeah.
meal is good, movies, but yeah, can you create conversations, where there's back and forth dialogue?
Being the offensive guy at Rice, what's your favorite style of play to teach?
I think, obviously Coach Lanier's vision for, our program, both sides of the ball, when we were at Georgia State, offensively, we played fast and then ended up going to the NCAA tournament because we were a defensive minded team. That's really why it happened. Made a run late and got hot because of our defense. And so we always, so offensively, to answer your question, we want to play fast with freedom. We want guys to not second guess themselves, to play without hesitation, to attack the paint, looking for, the same type of shots everybody else is looking for, but really a sense of freedom, trying to get advantages, keep them, just try to, at the same time, back to the roster. It changes every year now. And so you have to be, you want to play a certain way offensively, and you got to be, there's a skill for blending your roster with how you do want to play as well, too. So the pace, the freedom, the ability to spread the floor with shooting, but just get guys playing, fast and free.
I want to lean in a little bit more on the fast. How do you get your guys playing faster? Because I think a lot of people would say they like to play fast, but then realize it's harder than you think. You have to work really hard. How do you get your guys playing that fast?
I think the number one thing, coach says it all the time, in recruiting, everybody wants to play fast. And then you get there and it's the conditioning factor is real. I mean, if you want to play fast, you got to be in great shape. So we'll hit that. We played 3 games overseas last week, but we know we have to take it to another level conditioning wise to be able to play as fast. I think the next thing you always go to is, who's inbounding the ball? Is there a designated 4-man inbounding the ball? Is it the closest man? You look at college teams that, Gonzaga does it one way, somebody else might do it another way, but is it nearest man? Because you got 1 second and you got to get that ball on a make out of, in, and you got to be
forward hits. Yeah,
it's going. And so we talk about, running to our spots in transition, trying to break the paint in the first 4 seconds, trying to get that early blender going, shot selection wise. We do talk about, we came up with a system, green, yellow, red, green being those rim twos, getting to the free throw line, those open catch and shoot threes. We're trying to get early green. So within 4 seconds, if we can get a paint touch or an early green for us, we want to stay away from the yellow early and definitely the red, but we were trying to get an early advantage, get the blender going, get a paint touch, get the dominoes going. It might be an early trigger for us, whether that's a drag, whether it's some initial concept to try to get the advantage, but really we're trying to just attack the paint fast and furious. And our rosters over the years changed. So sometimes you're small with 4 guards and shooting really has that gravity that you want. Sometimes you're playing 2 bigs, which we've done at times. And then you're figuring out how you're doing that. But I think the fast part is, okay, what metrics are you using then? So are we really playing fast? Okay, here's what we're doing in the first 5-6 seconds of the shot clock. And then you keep going and you look at the numbers. Okay, we're really not playing as fast. So then are you implementing, whether it's a quick strike drill or a running habit drill, where you're building the habits on a daily basis of how fast you got to get up and down, because everybody will say the same things, the first 3 steps and all this. But it's like, okay, what are the metrics? Are you meeting those? If not, okay, how are we going to get this mentality to change? Because I mentioned Gonzaga, but that 3rd year at Georgia State, we went to the NCAA tournament. We drew the overall number 1 seed, Gonzaga. And so when you say pace and play fast, I think Gonzaga, because when that shot went up, I mean, you got to get back.
Feel it.
You feel it. And so, I've always tried to pick the brains of people that I respect as far as that pace. Just how do you develop that? Because I think it is mentality.
I love asking that question of what do you mean by fast when people say that they want to play fast, because you nailed it. The ball's inbounded and I sprint past half court, but then long drawn out continuity before we shoot. Just because you didn't walk it up the floor, I don't think that's fast. I think fast has to do with length of possession, right? If my possession, if we're getting the shots that we like in a short amount of time. Like you said, breaking the paint the moment you said break the paint at 4 seconds, okay, I understand what you mean by fast. Because it's almost like it's like shot selection, good, bad, great, not so good, only good shots. Now, that's vague. Fast, coach, is vague to me. I need something specific. And when you say we want to break the paint in 4 seconds, love the blender analogy. That's awesome. Borrowing that makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, I think so. You said nobody ever comes back with a question with you, but I'm saying, so, okay,
No.
if you're playing against, in my case, Rice, or you're playing against your team, and if the first thing on the scouting report, because that's what it was when we played Gonzaga, you got to get, like, transition defense is number one. You got to get back. So if it's not one or two on a scouting report against you, like, you're probably not playing as fast as you might think you are. And so when you do play fast, I do think metrics involved, but there is how are you teaching it? Can your players tell you and explain to you, yeah, this is what we do, this is where we run, this is why we do it, and just the whole, if it's a thing, it's got to be a real thing.
And you nailed it about you got to be organized. The idea of fast, that it's chaotic or that, man, you just roll the ball out there, probably not looking good playing fast. Going to be a
No,
lot of
absolutely.
mistakes. Guys are going to be space is going to be eaten up instead of created by your pace. And so when we're talking about playing fast. We talk about arriving in space. By the time the ball arrives, we need to already be, like you said, in our spots. And so it's all about the metrics like you're talking about, and then using film to show, because we played TABC and it was first time with these guys at Midway. We talked about playing fast. Hey, who'd like to play fast? Everybody raised their hands. And okay, let me tell you what that means. That means we're going to sprint every possession. I mean, sprint. And so after the games, we all celebrate how fast we played. I didn't have the heart to tell them, when we watch film, we're going to see a ton of jogging. Part of that is a shape component, but a huge part of that is, just like anything else, habits that you form over time. What are some of your favorite drills or games that you play in practice to kind of create those fast habits that you want?
Yeah, I mentioned two of them. I mean, I think just number one, I think the habits you can do, whether it's 5-on-0, there's a way to do that. You know, you can do it 3-on-0, where it's just you build up a sequence of, like, okay, here are 4 to 5 to 6, whatever things we're trying to get in early transition, and you're repping it, and it's a group of 3, throw it off the glass. All right, here's the first thing that we're working on. Here's the read, get 3 guys, 3 shots, and then next group up, blow the whistle. If someone doesn't run as fast as you want them to do, they don't run as wide as they need to run as wide as they need to run. Or if anything's not perfect, stop it, go again, go again, go again. It's not right, not fast enough, whatever. So you build those habits of running. So you can do it 3-on-0, 5-on-0. But then, I know it's an Alabama thing, but a quick strike drill where you reward, the points are assigned based on how many seconds are left in the shot clock, for us playing with the shot clock. So I think whatever constraints you're putting on it, whether it's a scoring, stipulation, I think there's ways to build habits that way. You can do your change drills, to work on changing, transition defense back. You can do that. But if I found that, like, when the metrics are involved and there's a direct score correlation to doing the right thing, I think that's the best way to build those habits. But it's just the constant reinforcing of using film, like you said. Look, you're at the break. You're really not at the corner. You need to get to the corner, and you need to hold the corner. And that's how we're going to get this space. So it's the reinforcement of those habits.
That goes back to what you said about the classroom, how people learn differently. I love to be able to just tell everybody one time what we're going to do, where they're going to run, when they're going to turn to the inside shoulder, when we put our head down. Just say it one time and then boom, we got it. But there's going to be guys that need to hear it. There's going to be guys that need to see it, and then they probably all need to do it. And it goes back to your relationships and knowing how your players learn. I think that's probably, and I'm talking to myself here, that's something in the fall or early in the season that I don't dive into. Maybe asking them, how do you learn the best? What's the best way for me to communicate what I want to you? And then hold them accountable to how they said they wanted to learn. I don't know.
I would I love that. I tried to do that, and then I tried something 2 years ago for the first time, and I actually like doing this. After the season, ask him the same thing. "Hey, was there anything I could have done better?" For me as an assistant coach. But some of the feedback, like I did it in a text, and some of the feedback I got was awesome. And when I started seeing similar responses from some of these guys, I was like, okay, ding, ding,
Blind
ding,
spot.
ding. I need to
Yeah.
get better at this. And
Yeah.
so, whatever that is, whether it's teaching or, I think there's ways that we could get better based on the questions we ask our players.
Coach, that's awesome. One of my, if coaches want to have more one-on-one meetings with players, have some questions that they're going to ask them. I haven't gotten shocks in my players' faces like when so I do 10-minute meetings probably 6 to 8 times throughout the year. We schedule them. First 5 minutes, I get to ask questions. Second 5 minutes, they get to ask questions, and nothing's off limits. And what we talk about stays with us. But really able to go down, even though it's only 10 minutes, Coach, we're able to go down a lot of cool things. And if it's not scheduled and you're just hoping that it happens, probably not going to happen. But one time around, and I'd heard a coach say it, and I asked them, "How can I be better for you?" Hey, coach, you would have thought that I stunned him, man. Like,
Right.
I got you. You don't know what to say, but then gave him a little bit of time, awkward pause, stare at him a little bit, smile, and really got some great feedback. And you nailed it. The more common out thing you see again and again, okay, that's a blind spot that I have.
Right.
And man, without asking those questions, we can just keep going thinking that, man, these guys love how I'm teaching them and not even realize that we could be better.
Right. For sure.
That was good. Talk a little bit about dividing responsibilities. I think the last question, Coach, before the speed round, it has to do with balancing the family life with coaching. And because high school coaches, for the most part, we don't recruit, I don't worry about that. That's just when I leave the school, it's done. I can kind of really let it go. But we are getting busier than ever before, but it doesn't compare to what you guys do. So how do you balance your coaching and everything you have to do with that with your family life?
Yeah, I think I would probably say it's the number one thing that I think about most. I think especially now, 45 years old, daughter just turned 10, fifth grade, all that. So I did, some days I find myself maybe not beating myself up about it, but just like, hey, could I be spending more? So I'll answer it like this. I think I was always looking for a way to not feel better, but get better in that area, I guess. And then I think it was Andy Stanley, but I've heard some other people say it this way, that you're never going to have a balance. And so I heard that, and the word they used, it's a managing of attention that you have to realize. And so it was maybe a year ago or 2 years ago now that I heard that for the first time. And it's kind of flipped a switch with me where it's never going to go away. And so I think in coaching, yeah, you have a tendency, even as a high school coach, where you could put a little bit more time when you don't necessarily have to be doing something. You find a way to always be doing something. So I try to get better at that, try to put down the phone when I can more. My wife, Heather, is awesome, so supportive. But when I frame it like that, to me, it just makes it to where, okay, it's always going to be there. I'm going to manage it the best I can, knowing that it's not going to feel perfect inside all the time. I might have the day where I feel guilty, but it's okay. And that's really helped.
With that idea of, you said managing
Managing the tension.
managing of attention.
The tension, like
Yeah.
it's tension. It's never going away. And you look at it where you're chasing some feeling of like, okay, I'm working as hard on my craft and my job as I'm spending time with my family. I'm putting more time at work. It's okay. I'm providing for my family. Oh, but I love this. It just, if I want to be good, and before you know it, in coaching, I mean, it's why it's such a hard lifestyle, but it's a tension that will never go away. It's like, there's some things in life where you have to learn how to manage that feeling at that moment. And if you're not careful, you end up taking yourself mentally to a place that you don't need to be. And you're searching for something that doesn't exist. You're never going to have balance. So it's a tension that be managed.
I wonder how many coaches out there are basically living with guilt every day in both directions. Guilt of not giving my players more, or spend and giving every ounce of my time and day to the calling that I feel like we have over our lives, guilt over not allowing ourselves to separate and give our family, which I always think of David Peeler at Highland Park. He told me that he has a sign when he drives into his house above the door in the garage. It says, "Don't fail at the job that only you can do."
Yeah.
But man, you have both of these paths going on at the same time. And so how do you not feel guilt, and how are you not just feeling like a failure every day to either side? Coach, I think that has to be a feeling that a lot of us have.
No, for sure. And that's why that just thinking about it, framing it that way has helped me. And I think, none of us are perfect. We want to be the best at both. And so how can you manage that along the way?
And it's not a trick question, but it's not really a great question about asking how you balance it. Mike Neighbors said you don't, you can't. And in fact, what I've heard a lot of guys say, and I'm sure you've done too, is try to blend it together as much as you can. How much can you have your family around the program? How much can you have your players over to your house? And I think the more that we blend it, then man, bring those worlds together. Maybe not keep them so separate.
Yeah. I mean, Coach Lanier is the best at that. I mean, our families just went with us. And so, but I still think I just back to how times have changed, like social media, you can do this 24 hours if you want to.
Yeah.
And just the constant, like just ability to try to balance and manage that is definitely where it's at.
Coach, the speed round. These are going to be quick questions. The first thing that pops in your head, rattle it off. Okay.
Got it.
All right, Coach. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oreo/mint chocolate chip, both of them.
Wow. Good one. Oreo isn't said a lot, and I like that. That's good.
Healthy.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph Curry.
Yeah. Do you stand up or sit down more during games?
Sit down.
Yeah. And I know obviously head coach assistant role a little bit different, but is that just kind of your personality to not get up and be doing a ton in those games?
Yeah, I would say personality, assistant, obviously sitting a lot more. I would say more 50-50 when I'm a head coach, but just close to my staff.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one thing. I was watching Houston Second Baptist this year, and Coach Land I was blown away by not only how good their team was, they won state, but also he talked to and consulted
I noticed the
his
same
team a
thing.
ton.
I noticed
Yeah.
this thing. I saw a game this year at a tournament, and then I ran into him in Georgia in June at the event in Georgia. I noticed the exact same thing. He does a great job.
It was really convicting for me because I don't feel like I do that. I get locked in and I'm just watching. Maybe I'll yell something to my side. I don't do what another college coach did last year, which is assistant coach came up and told him to shut up. I don't do that, but that was impressive to me. Top 3 dinner guests that you like to have any time period.
Wow. I'll say John Wooden. Had a chance to meet him, but didn't. I'd love to spend more time with him. Like he was,
Yeah.
that was awesome. I would say Michael Jordan, just because all-time favorite player growing up. And then I would say, I would say my best friend Nate, just because I don't get to see him as much anymore. Just lives are hectic. Family. He lives in the East Coast. I'm in Texas, so I would say my best friend Nate Barton.
Would love to see John Wooden and Michael Jordan sitting there talking together. That'd be incredible. Best basketball movie of all time.
What was that? I forget, the Michael Jordan documentary, Last Dance, I guess I would say.
Oh yeah, Last Dance.
He was my
Every
favorite. And just
every LeBron, anybody that says LeBron is the GOAT, which we're going to get to that question, but I feel like I already know your answer. But anybody that says LeBron, you got to watch Last Dance. And if you still want to have, what's funny is when I get to the GOAT question, the people that aren't Jordan, they feel like they have to justify it with a huge list of reasons.
Right.
Anybody that says Jordan, they just go Michael Jordan. And that's it.
No explanation needed.
All right. We're both in Texas for high school shot clock or no shot clock.
Definitely shot clock.
Thanks, Coach. You think it's going to happen?
I sure hope so. I mean, I've
I
seen
thought it was
other
going to happen
states.
10 years ago. That's the
Yeah.
problem. That's the only thing I'm worried about is golly, like I don't know how many years I have left, but I'd love to see it.
Hopefully you can push it through.
I'll try. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Good one. What book would you give someone?
The Bible.
All right, let's take it's kind of like in the dinner guest having Jesus in there. Let's take the Bible off. What's another one?
Atomic Habits.
That's where the batching and habit stacking right there. Yeah.
They read it, but yeah, that one definitely hit the mark.
Favorite place to travel?
Colombia, South America.
Yeah.
Lived there for 5 years. Yeah, just fell in love with the place.
Awesome. Well, did you play there or was it growing up there?
My parents were missionaries, actually. And so
Awesome.
went to a boarding school from like 8 to 13. I just loved it.
When was the last time you were back?
What's today? Tuesday? I'm going on Thursday.
Wow.
Can't, and so the
How long
last
has it
time-
been since you've been there?
I'd have to count it up. It's been like 8 years, 9 years.
Okay.
So
That'll
I'm
be
due.
cool. Assuming the GOAT is Jordan, can we skip that one?
Yeah, it's definitely Jordan Skip.
Okay. Last one. If this was your last year of coaching, what would you do more of?
This is my favorite question. Spend more time with the players, for sure. Like just find a way to really, I think like wrapping all of this up, it's like that's why we coach, and you end up consuming yourself with a lot of other things that you have to do, but then you get to the end and you're like, wish I would have spent more time with so-and-so who just graduated, and you'll never be around in that capacity again. So it's just, you don't want any regrets.
Yeah.
And so I would say that.
Coach, this was awesome, man. It just flowed so well, and it's been awesome when we've been able to cross paths over the years, but just really appreciate the time that you gave up.
No, for sure. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Awesome, Coach. Well, good luck this year. And I hope I can come down and we're not that far away from each other now. I'm in Waco, so I'd love to come down and check out a practice and watch a game, but best of luck this year.
For sure. Open invitation, any practice, tickets for you, whatever you need.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.